Hello, good people. Welcome to another podcast session hosted by the Youth Cafe. And today we're not alone. We are in collaboration with Speak Up Africa, whereby we are going to analyze the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act in Kenya. And I'm joined here by our colleagues from our far right. We have Mike Omera, our partnerships manager here at the Youth Cafe. We have Diana Katsukal from Speak Up Africa, and our able lawyer, Salome Mashuka, from the Speak Up Africa as well. So, right on to the discussion for this session. And so, Salome, from a legal perspective, can you provide us with an overview of the current state of digital rights in Kenya? What are these specific provisions that exist in Kenya to protect the digital rights?
Okay, so I'll first start by saying that when we talk about digital rights, we're not talking about new rights or conspicuous rights. We're talking about the rights that are actually there. Rights such as the freedom of expression, we have the freedom of speech, the right to privacy. They're not just there to be applied physically, but they're to be applied within Kenya's jurisdiction. So they are actually to be applied in the online space. So these are, when we talk about digital rights, we just want to break it down for the public and tell them that the rights that you already know of, they also apply during, when you're conversing in the digital space. So when we talk about digital rights, we have the rights that I've already expressed. And just to make things a bit more familiar, we also have the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act of Kenya, which actually now talks more about, digital rights and affirms the security of digital space in Kenya. So it criminalizes crimes that are specific to the digital era. So we have crimes such as cyber terrorism, we have cyberbullying. There's such crimes that you see probably in the physical space there will be something like assault, yeah. But if you assault me on the online space, that becomes cyber harassment. Yeah, so that is what we mean by digital rights. And I'd say compared to Uganda and Tanzania, Kenya has actually achieved a milestone when it comes to establishing these rights and actually now implementing their digital rights.
Okay, thank you for those great insights. This comes at an interesting times, Mike, when you see like countries like Nepal has recently banned TikTok. So let's come back here home. How do you think we address issues when it comes to online harassment, cyberbullying, and matters of cybercrimes, or these specific legal frameworks aimed to mitigate these challenges?
From a layman's point of view, when we talk about the opportunity there is to relate online, the tendency often is that people carry the physical relationships to online spaces. So I see an opportunity here where people have tended to feel that they are shrouded in some space, that nobody is seeing them. So they can actually go overboard in some of the opportunity at some of these spaces. It has also been noted that the online space offers like a bigger expression space than a physical one. So the tendency then again is people tend to speak more or tend to do more things online as opposed to what they would do physically. So having a law in place will help to regulate some of these opportunities. But at the same time, it may pick out the wrong boys and girls from these processes. Possibly that, for me, as a lay person looking at the digital space and the growth that is there, we see then a growth in terms of, it's an extension of the physical space, but equally needs to be manned. So having a law in place for me is a good thing. That's my thought.
Okay, thank you for those things that indeed it's a difficult space to control. Yeah, so Diana, from your perspective, how do you think the civil society organizations and advocacy campaigns in Kenya are safeguarding our digital rights?
I think initially, as Salome had mentioned, there was the cyber and the computer, basically a rule on digital rights that was passed. And this is basically trying to, like, as he said, man, or basically protect people from being cyberbullied, cyber harassed. And quite recently with our generation, as you've seen, there's a lot of revenge porn. Someone breaks up with you, they release something, you had maybe an intimate moment with you. So I also think that, also apart from that, also recognizing that these issues happen on a digital platform has been quite important. Because initially it was just banter, like, it's something funny, you know, but at the end of the day, you're laughing at someone else's self-esteem, probably. You're also going to, and it also features into like a mental capacity, mental health, you know, because you can imagine if I'm sitting with you here and I make fun of you, you might feel bad, but you leave here and you'll go home and you might forget about it after a couple of weeks. But imagine thousands of people, hundreds of people just mocking you day by day, every day. It takes a toll on someone. It takes a toll on someone's mental health, your capacity to even just be able to sit in front of other people's spaces. If you can't go ahead and walk outside and people not recognize you, you know, it's intense. So I feel like the recognition for us, for even the society to even recognize like there is something wrong with going too far with certain things, and these rules being set so that we can confirm and affirm that, okay, you can't go overboard on certain things. And even recently our own who is this Millicent Omanga, she experienced the same thing, you know, and people were mocking her and making fun of her online. But then if the person who released that, you know, if there's a repercussion that, you know, if I do go to a certain extent of bullying someone, whether it's someone who's a minority or someone who works in the society, that's a big deal, I could end up in jail. It's a criminalized, you know, situation. So if you take things overboard and be inconsiderate of other people's emotions, and leave alone even going to jail, you could lose your job. You know, this thing about social media, there's the term called cancellation. You know, you could get cancelled. People can blackball you. We can forget about you. You can lose your job just because you went and overspoke over something. That's why nowadays, even when you go for like job opportunities, they like do a whole rundown of your
socials.
Your socials. Like, what do you do? What do you post? What do you speak about? Do you represent, like, because you know when you walk out, people assume like if I leave my workplace, then it's me. No, you're representing them in every manner and every way. So those type of things, you know, affirming that, okay, you cannot, even if you have personal intuitions or, you know, you want to speak about certain things, you can speak about them on like a physical aspect. Like, don't present them on a whole world platform, because you'll either lose a job or it will have like major repercussions on you. So I think the civil society itself has taken action into it, even with jobs, even with different organizations. And some people have called it unfair, but if you think about it, in the long run, it has a form of fairness to it, because we all just can't say what we think and what we want. We need to be mindful of how you represent yourself, what you stand for, and how it impacts other people.
It's good you brought it. And nowadays you're seeing even people being taken to court or jail on matters on online harassment, and also to pick your brain on the same. We have all these social media platforms now that exist, and I know in the next couple of few years more will continue to exist. So what do you think are the role of these social media platforms or these tech companies are involved in safeguarding digital rights in Kenya?
I think every single company has its own set of rules and ideas. So social media has opened us. It's like the wild wide web. You know, it's like we were a small village, and now we're like, I could see what's happening to someone now in Netherlands, even if I've never stepped there. You know, it's connecting us. It's interconnected. But then it comes to an extent where now we still need to safeguard, because in as much as social media is connecting, it can also be a way of like taking information in the wrong way. You know, like you had people being hacked. You had banks being hacked. You had information of people, intimate information being hacked. So it connects us, and it has offered a lot of job opportunities. Like I personally, people call it a social media manager, but a communication associate. Sally does research, and she also deals on a social media platform. So it has offered us an opportunity to basically have a job, and also, you know, be modernized, because you also can't cut off social media, because that is what is happening right now. We can't cut it off, and that is why you find people like, maybe when we're having these wars like in Israel and there's no internet, or in Sudan, people are complaining like, why are you cutting off the internet? This is the only way that we can communicate, we can connect to the world and show what atrocities are happening in our country. So there is a need for, even if the tech companies are there, Even if the opportunities are there for like people to join and connect, there's need for like proper supervision and protection, because you don't assume that only other people could get harassed. Because if someone right now hacks into the youth cafe and takes valuable information, you have confidential information about people, you understand? And you have things that people, like someone's ID number is something confidential to them, like someone where they work, where they live is something confidential. So that's why these companies set up certain aspects, and that's why you have to sign like certain NDAs when you join certain companies, because they want that idea of confidentiality. They don't want you to pass information that you're not supposed to. And I think there's something about data. Sally, what's that?
The Data Protection Act. It's about safeguarding people's personal information. So basically, organizations that have to safeguard people's data have to register with the Data Protection Commissioners. It is a commissioner. Commissioner. And basically, it's just to protect people's, privacy, like Diana has said there. So even simple information such as my ID number or my passport number or probably my education track record, that is something that is personal to me, and I'll feel violated if somebody comes and hacks into probably my laptop, my Gmail account, and shares this information publicly. It is a direct infringement of my right to privacy.
And that's very much interesting. And now we are seeing times whereby people have paid fines or being taken to court for taking photos of people without consent in itself. So Sally, my next question on to you. This is very much usually common when it comes to African countries, whereby there are usually internet shutdowns. During political or social unrest. How does this impact the digital rights and freedoms of our country in Kenya?
Yeah, just like Mike said, that people nowadays find it easier to express their views on online platforms rather than in a physical meetup, especially the youth. So if we have situations such as a power shutdown, then obviously, people's phones will die and laptops, and people will not have access to the digital world. So it is somehow, if it is done deliberately, and if it's done to stop people from, expressing their political views, then it is a direct infringement of the freedom of expression and the freedom of speech, and as well as the freedom of association, and political speech as well. So we're living in an era whereby the digital era, we're living in an era whereby, I'm thinking that maybe during Mike's time, campaigns will be done physically, maybe on the ground. Nowadays people, X, formerly known as Twitter, is a very, very powerful political platform. And unfortunately, we're living in an era whereby if a political figure or a politician just stumbles or fumbles up, then within a matter of seconds or minutes, the whole country will know. So I think we've witnessed this in Uganda, if I'm not wrong, during the previous national elections, where people were in a total shutdown. I think the same is happening in Gaza, to try and stop people from actually telling the world or showing the world what exactly is happening. So it's not right.
The Ugandan case is very strange, because even now, the president deferred with Meta, and Ugandans cannot access Facebook on ordinary applications. They have to look for ways to get to Facebook. They have to go to VPN and things like that. So that kind of crackdown again deprives the people of their rights, because now this is a right. I mean, the right to express on social media, the right to create opportunities. People are working online. People are making money on those platforms. So when a country either draws back the opportunity to use social media, either by shutting down the internet or even cutting down power, like what has happened in Gaza, it definitely affects people's expression. Because again, The world, like Diana said, has become bigger beyond the physical meat, beyond the physical capacity to relate. The extension into the digital space should be treated with that respect, even as Salome said, in terms of the opportunity there is that has grown here. Even at the physical level, people have the tendencies to break ordinary laws. So the digital space, the fact that people may have abused the digital space shouldn't be a reason to shut them down. Yeah. But instead we should have an opportunity to regulate. I mean, the superhighway, when it came, it bombarded us with many things, but we learned to cope in them. So when a government feels that it has the right to pull back, it is trampling on people's rights.
But then if it's not the government that's now, for instance, now because of what Museveni believes in, or what he stands by, his principles, these powerhouses like Zuckerberg decides to cut off, Facebook. At some point there, it's not necessarily the government's fault, I would say, because in as much as we portray that the internet is a freedom of speech area or platforms are offered, I think Elon Musk, he bought Twitter to just prove like it's a place of freedom of speech. He bought the honor out because he wanted to prove like you can't bar Donald Trump, you can't bar Kanye West, you can't say this and that. And I think that is where like there's certain limitations like for Meta to now say they're going to remove their progress or whatever their programs that are working in Uganda just because the president doesn't necessarily align with their beliefs. So now it also comes to the point where are you like weaponizing digital platforms or our digital access just because we don't necessarily agree with whatever you guys are saying or what you stand for? Because in African culture we have a lot of beliefs that we have done away with and that we have lost on our way trying to, but in as much as I don't necessarily say I'm agreeing with what Museveni has done, but I think as part of saying that it's a digital platform, someone can say whatever they want and there's freedom of speech, someone can say, I don't necessarily agree with this way. And it doesn't mean that you shut out the whole country just because he's the leader,
Yeah, I just again to add on to that, we've equally had elections, and actually currently there is ongoing processes in DRC. Liberia just concluded an election. They did not shut down the internet. They did not pull back the social media. I mean, I just read a piece this morning that George Weah lost by a very small margin. He had the opportunity to pull back that and contest, but he has accepted that he lost. I mean, gracefully. And something similar is happening in DRC, even as much as they are in conflict. It appears that the sitting government has not interfered with social media. So we do not necessarily need to interfere with social media to progress either politically or whatever it is. So yes, in terms of then manning the space, I think the responsibility falls on two sides. It's both in government, but also these tech companies and the fellows who run the social media platforms. Like you're saying, Elon Musk,
Elon Musk, he plays the devil's advocate in most things. He's like, you're going this way, I'll go the other way, And I think that is why also China, in China they have their own platforms. You're not allowed to use like WhatsApp, they have WeChat. You're not allowed to use this, they have this, you understand? And then on the other side,
by the way, do they do TikTok?
They do educative programs.
That's where it's from, from Asia, and that is why you're also seeing like, at the end of the day, when you do look at these things like social media and whatever, you see there's a lot of like superpowers trying to play with it, because now you're trying to bar TikTok because obviously there's some issues with data infringement, but also when you look at it deep inside, it's also the fact that it's from
China. But it's interesting, the content they consume is more of educative. I read the other day, even the CEO of TikTok is cheery or not on TikTok.
They're corrupting our minds.
Somebody once gave a testimony that while in Kenya, the content that appears on your feed while you're scrolling through TikTok is more of entertainment. But the moment they landed in China, the content that appeared on the TikTok feed was educational,
Educational,
purely
yeah.
educational. He even got bored of the app.
Oh.
Yeah.
So are we saying then, in terms of control, then governments and even the owners of these platforms have a capacity then to allow what comes through?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Aren't we then looking at the next level of possibilities of disinformation?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's very much
Yes.
true.
Because if they will regulate what you see here, and if you went to another country, they will decide what you will see or consume, aren't we being exposed to thinking of some other people?
Yeah.
Isn't it then a role of government, possibly again looking at this act, isn't it a role of government to try and regulate that in terms of what is it that comes through? I mean, for instance, there's been a lot of restrictions around porn sites, and it's not everybody can access, right? You have to. Now, what about these general social sites and platforms? If we want to merely entertain people when there is an opportunity to do other things on those platforms, wouldn't it be that? Would that not be a role of government and these tech companies to hopefully then drive through people towards a given agenda?
Okay,
It
there's
is.
that, but then you
Yeah.
know, there's also nothing wrong with people going through, you know, entertainment, so long as it doesn't, you know, infringe on anybody's rights. But when we come to the lawlessness that happens on digital platforms, yes, the government has a role to play, and for them, the best, I believe that the best they can do is, apart from being, you know, following up with these tech companies, these social media platforms such as Instagram, the social media platforms also have a responsibility to have, you know, strict community guidelines that are in line, because you may come to Kenya and something like pornography is illegal, but you go to a different country, probably from in the West, and it's not illegal, so they can't ban that. Yep. But so it depends with the countries, the jurisdiction in which they're operating under, and they also have to enforce their community guidelines. A platform like Instagram has strict community guidelines, and once you accept the terms and conditions, then sometimes you may post something and Instagram pulls down your post because it is not in line with their community guidelines. But go to X, Twitter. I haven't read the community guidelines and the terms and conditions, but people post anything there. Yeah, go to Telegram. Sorry, it's even worse. So these social media platforms and the tech companies also have a duty to, you know, and ensure that the content that is being operated, that is being displayed in a particular jurisdiction, is in line with the laws of that jurisdiction. And also, the government doesn't have to come and poke them and tell them. For instance, it wasn't for the government to go and for our president to go and, summon the CEO of TikTok and tell him, what your platform is advertising is probably against our culture and our morality as a country. It should be for them to realize, to be aware, have a legal team to let them know this is what you can tolerate, this is what you can't tolerate in Kenya. And the moment this is posted, take it down. Yeah.
Content moderation
Yes.
is a big deal.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to ask another question, but just to add on that line, again, often the question is, against what moral authority do we do content moderation? We just mentioned China has a certain perspective of growth, a trajectory that they have, and would want to help their people achieve that. And they have decided that as a country. But many of our countries may not have such a moral trajectory that they want to drive their people to. Does that conflict with people's rights? Are we saying China people do not have a right to watch entertainment and follow entertainment? They have to strictly follow what the government is saying. Where is personal space and personal freedom in those? And even looking at the act the current act that we're discussing here for Kenya, which, as you mentioned, is quite a progress in the region, because other countries in the region do not seem to have put their things together. Does that mean that we are limiting people's freedom?
That's interesting. You're making me think about TikTok live.
It might be limiting, but it definitely might be needed.
Right.
It might be needed, because if we're saying that in TikTok, when you go to their country, which is basically Asia, China, it's showing basically information that it can build someone's IQ or something that's good, and then in Kenya it's just all over the place. You wake up, in as much as we're saying it's TikTok's responsibility to take care of it, I also think it's the government's responsibility, because when we were about to shut them down and there were aspects of this bill was played in the parliament, and we were like, okay, we were thinking of shutting it down, that Somalia had, the CEO came to Kenya. So if it's important for him, for us to not ban it, then it should be important for them also to play the right information for the people and to put the right aspects when it comes to that. And if it was okay for our government our president specifically, to meet with the TikTok CEO, that was our chance to also put in our guidelines, like this is what we want and this is not what we want, because now you've come down to our leveling field, and clearly we've seen that us being involved in TikTok is a major deal for you to come here.
Yes, that you stopped everything.
Yes, you came here to say, do not, please don't do it, not here. So for the fact that you came here, we also seems like we also have the bargaining power of saying, okay, this is what we want and this is what we don't want. And this is where I would blame, like, not just this government, but the governments even before. We don't necessarily look into the nitty-gritty. We're like, oh, you've offered us this, then we're like, oh yeah, very lucky, go, we're happy. Sometimes we should look for things that also they are beneficial to us. When someone comes down and offers you a favor or offers you a contract or a proposal, what part of that proposal do you want it to match your aspects in it? What do you want? What is your want? They've already given you their ask. What about your ask? So I think that is what we should also definitely, because TikTok is watched by kids, there are kids on there, there are grown-ups in there, so there should definitely be like parental guidelines, even the way you have like DSTV and you set a parental guideline and be like, you can't watch past this. Because now if you're saying your kids are not on TikTok, your government doesn't watch certain aspects of TikTok, and then the rest of you is like, whatever happens to you happens. So it beats the logic of you caring about us.
Okay. Earlier, Mike, it's interesting. You mentioned the aspect of dis and misinformation, which got me thinking. Now let's talk about digital literacy when it comes to Kenya. So, do you think there are initiatives in place that are there to educate our citizens in matters of digital rights?
That is a forest. When you look around, particularly in the civil society, there's been so many, literacy programs, particularly thinking around the digital space as an opportunity for employment. There's been myriads of courses, some online, some physical. There's been a lot of them. What does not click for me is how much of that information truly supports understanding. Because I've literally walked through some of those courses and I'm like, okay, after 2-3 weeks of training, so what have I learned? Content. That content, some of it is lacking in terms of quality. Some of it presupposes that someone had prior training to be able to access this. Some of that prior training was not there. When I grew up, there were no computers. We used typewriters. Computers came when I just finished high school, and we taught ourselves to use computers. Then there were computer classes and all. These days, kids are growing, are being born, and the first thing they get always a phone, and they can use phones. How much of knowledge and capacity to navigate this space do they have? Very little. As Diana said, one of the challenges that I think we are facing is the free openness that we have towards the digital space is not necessarily adding a value. For me, literacy should be guided by certain ethical considerations. Okay. Because like we're saying, a country like China or other countries are necessarily supporting their people to reach certain aims. For me, I think we should have an ethical guideline packed into those literacy programs. There should be an understanding that this is where we need to go. Diana did mention, yes, as African communities, we may have dropped a lot of our restrictions, a lot of our cultural aspects, but that does not make us inhuman. It actually opens up our opportunities to build this human with much more, particularly now that the digital era is here. We need to pick the best. We need to be able to support our growing generations with the best knowledge that there is, because then it should add value. Yeah. Actually, any education we get should add to our humanity. It shouldn't be removing from our humanity. Okay. So the digital space, with all that it offers, I feel that there should be some guidelines in there that lead us to certain goals, either as a nation or as a generation or even as young people. Yes.
Interesting you mentioned. So Diana, like nowadays we see like coming to the monetization of this, let's say, this platform that exists. Now we are seeing a lot of people making good money through these our platforms. From your perspective, for it, is it a plus or is it a minus when it comes like?
It's definitely a plus because already there are barely any jobs. So if someone is going to go online and talk and do something they like and get paid, why not? You know, because we're clearly suffering from youth unemployment. So many people don't have jobs, and it's not just the youth. Even you know, social media has also made it like almost like a marketplace. You market whatever substance you're offering, you know, and you can monetize it instead of like having a physical store where you're going to get taxed by the carry. You have to pay what, you have to pay this and that. You can just sit online and just sell whatever you have to sell at the comfort of your home, you know. So I think it's important, the fact that I think it's good, the fact that people have been able to monetize it. Now the government also wants to tax that. So I don't know what they want to leave the people with, because you know, you don't want to offer them jobs, and if they do get a job, you will tax them, pay as you earn. They find a job for themselves, they create a platform. I'm here, I'm selling whatever I'm selling, I'm offering whatever I'm offering. You also want to tax that. So when do people get to like breathe, you know, give them like a breathing space to also build themselves. You can't just take and you're not giving. And you can't say you're the one who gave the digital platform because you're not Mark Zuckerberg. You know, you did not and you can't say you're allowing us because also we need freedom of speech. So I think the idea of monetization through these digital platforms has been amazing, because not everyone has that opportunity, and it has even helped people to now people can even earn through teaching other people. You know, you don't have to necessarily now go to a class to learn something. You can learn online. You know, so I think monetization has been a good thing. I think it has really helped a lot of people. But now also the government is also creeping in on that. You know, they're trying to also get what they can, but it's been a good thing. It's offering help where people were feeling like they've despaired. Yeah.
But for the right reasons.
Yeah, for the right reasons. Because in Kenya is tough.
Yeah.
You go for a job, someone tells you 5 years experience, but graduated in 2020. Where am I getting the experience? You know, it's hard. It's really hard. So if people can make money online, they can grow their skill and make money from it. Why not? The government should be helping people to even want to, give them this opportunity to grow. If you can't get a job, you know, it's like, unfortunately, our vice president went to a graduation and said, "I'm sorry to tell you, there are no jobs." So me, I went to school, you know, and now there's no job.
Like graduation ceremony.
So now it's also growing this other side, the informal sector, and I think that is why even right now there is CBC. People are being taught on what they can basically monetize on and what they can, you know, something that's practical, something that will help them in the long run, not just chemistry and physics. Right now, people are like, Maluma maths. Like, you know, like, what is this? You're not here, me, I'm still good in life. You know, and it's helping people. It's helping people also
Yeah.
sustain their families.
That's
it
very
is.
much true. So, Sally,
Yes.
from your perspective, what you could consider that could have been the critical steps that we can adapt to or utilize to strengthen the digital rights in Kenya?
I think the most crucial step is knowledge. Yeah, because people say knowledge is power, but leave alone the education sort of perspective. Now look at outside here. Many times when people will come and tell you, so and so took a decent picture of me, and I don't know what to do because this person is blackmailing me. But this person is also not aware of the fact that cyber harassment in Kenya is a crime.
Yeah.
You only need to go and show the police that this is the picture, these are the texts of the person threatening me and all that. Yeah. So people need to know their rights in the digital platform, and I think that is where CSOs and NGOs come in. It's sort of also what we do at Speak Up. We try to create awareness that yes, as much as you may think that outside here you can commit a crime and you'll definitely go to prison, but also in the digital era, yeah, people also protected there, that you have your rights, that a certain person cannot talk to you how they want to. They cannot probably start a terrorism campaign or something like that. People need to know what's right and what's wrong, and once people know, that Americans are so fond of saying, I know my rights, I pay my taxes. It's because they know. Yeah? they know what they're you cannot come and you'll rarely find an American who's not knowledgeable enough to know that I have some certain protection. So I think once people know, then you will have cases of, Kenyans are very argumentative and Kenyans know how to stand up for themselves. So you can come and harass me, and a Kenyan knowing their rights, especially on Twitter, they will make sure that you know that they know their rights. Yeah, and then people will be able to stand up for themselves, and we'll probably have a more safe digital environment in Kenya, and we'll also be able to call out the government, like, why are you censoring what we're supposed to be seeing, yeah? Well, this is not illegal. Why are you doing this, And like I said, Kenyans are very good at calling out the government. So I think it all starts with knowledge. Yeah.
So, Mike, from your end, so do you think it's more a matter of considering young people? So is it a matter of ignorance, or is it that we need specific policy changes or awareness campaigns?
Listening to Sally, I agree with her to a large extent. But equally, when we talk about the populations that access digital space, this country is still very lopsided, in the sense that we have a lot of people in the rural areas who do not necessarily have access to the digital space. There are people who still use very, very those small phones. Katululu. The Katululu. Mulikamwizi. Yeah. Now, even as much as we are saying the literacy, the knowing, the awareness that needs to be there as part of that growth process, and the space that we are in as Kenyans, I see a huge gap. One, politically, Kenyans are very, very sharp. We understand what we need. We understand what we want. Yeah. Actually, we even see more gaps of what we are not getting, what we are supposed to have.
Yeah.
But when it comes to these specific areas, I see a gap in the sense that while the urban centers, access is good. There are places now, at least in Nairobi, anytime you walk to any office, there is Wi-Fi, and free Wi-Fi you can access. There was talk of having some spots in the city where you can just walk in and use your phone. But we are still very far in the rural areas, in the villages. With these rains, there are places that just went into darkness. We have seen what has happened in Mombasa and other places. We do not see the response of government or the relevant authorities to try, for example, and restore those where there is a breakage of either internet or power. So that still leaves a huge gap of people out there. But by and large, literacy, awareness of rights, awareness of what needs to be done is something that seems to be growing across. And even looking at our school and our curriculums, I am not sure CBC is the right curriculum. At least in terms of content, we may be on the right path in terms of what needs to be done. But as a country, we have struggled with very many curriculums. And every curriculum has come with its good things and its negatives. I think as a country, we need to continually fix our curriculums to a level where it will speak to our own rights, to our own well-being. Because did you people know that our curriculum implementation is sponsored almost 90% by foreign governments? You need to think about
that. Mind-boggling, yeah.
Why are the foreign governments interested in so much in the education curriculum that we run as a country?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that is
Food for thought.
So think about it.
Yeah, definitely do so. Is it coming or going to our home stretch? So Dan, what do you think? Let's say, as young people, as youth organization, what pivotal role can we play in shaping the future of our digital rights in Kenya?
Since clearly we lack, like Sally said, the knowledge. I think also Mike mentioned something of us, the literacy levels, also understanding, because there is knowledge being offered and then there's also you understanding what is being offered. So I think we need to have the information and also to understand it and also share it, because that is the entire point of having like this youth or this type of platforms where we want to pass more knowledge. We want to give the right information, not just any type of information, because now that's the work of the social media. It gives all sorts of information, but then we narrow it down. We just tailor-make this information for certain specifications and certain topics so that people can understand. And also, after the knowledge is passed, for them to also understand, because clearly there's a gap between the knowledge, because someone could know something but they don't understand it. You know, they know of it, but they don't understand it. You ask them a question like, yes, this and this and this and this, but do you know what it means? Do you know what are the repercussions of doing this and that? They don't know that. They just know this is what I know, and that's where it ends. So I think we need to know and then understand and then share the right information, because there's also a lot of misinformation on the internet. It's known for that, you know. You can't Google certain information. You need to find the right sources of curating this information and also where you can download it from. It's like now trying to find a bill in Kenya and you go look for it on the internet. Someone could have taken it, tweaked it, and posted it there. If you do go to the Parliament of Kenya, you will find the right bill. So so also knowing where you're finding these sources of information is also very important. You can't Google it. You can't go on someone else's page and just, you know, unless it's someone who has spoken for these things and the information seems to be very accurate and correct, then that's okay. But then I feel also like the sources of information also need to be acknowledged. Not everyone is passing the right information. Some information is tweaked, and also if we can be able to also break it down, because as Speak Up Africa, that's what we do. We take information, we break it down into layman terms for everyone to be able to understand. Because not everyone wants to read a whole textbook. Some people just want the key points and they work better with that. So sometimes you also try and tailor-make the information to what suits the audience, you know. Not everyone wants to go through a whole textbook of information. So we can do that, and then we can pass the information to you as long as it's the right and correct information for you to understand. It's short, precise, and concise. Yes.
But as they say, the devil is in the details. So, which is interesting. You mentioned like then when it comes to Salome, when it comes to, you know, you can enter in our social media platforms and we find a lot of Salome with the same picture of you over there. And they're having lots of conversation here in your absence. So how do you think you can strike a balance in safeguarding our digital rights and also it comes to addressing the challenges in implementation?
I think I'll go back to CSOs and NGOs. Yeah, they really play a key role in helping the government to realize people's rights. Yeah, and to enforce its laws. So if I go online and I find 10 pseudos there, yeah, I think even the tech companies and the social media platforms, whatever platform that the pseudo is operating on, I should be able to just easily file a complaint, and for it to be resolved, within reasonable time, of course, even after they've done the investigations. So I don't know really, but I'd still stand on knowledge, that people need to know that you cannot just be violated on the digital platforms, and just having people put pressure on these tech companies, on the government. Yeah, we need the outside parties to help to make a lot of noise so that the government in turn can also poke these tech companies and the social media platforms and actually ensure that their community guidelines, that they actually follow through with their community guidelines, that people are not being violated every day on their platforms. Yeah.
And just to add on that, I think also when it comes to implementation, I think it should start from the top. Because in Kenya, I've seen, like a lot of leaders also just wake up and just write whatever they feel, So you can't necessarily tell the people to have to follow these digital rights in these digital spaces when you as a leader yourself, you wake up and write a lot of, non-essential stuff on the platforms. You're basically telling them, I'm leading, you follow. I've done this, you can do it as well, Moses Kuria can just wake up, abuse someone, call someone this, say that to someone. And that is why there was, I don't know, I can't remember the lady, but there was a commissioner who came in Kenya, and Moses Kuria had tweeted something so crazy, she turned down meeting him. She didn't want to meet him.
There was a lady from the US, I think, a trade minister, trade something, and said...
She didn't want to meet him. That's such an embarrassment. Imagine that the CS of trade can't be met because he just wakes up and just spews any type of things he wants to spew on the internet. He doesn't. You even sit down and think, does this person have like a social media accountant or like a PA, like help this person curate these messages before he puts them out there. So it starts also from the top. If you want to implement these laws and also be careful of what people are writing and saying, how about our leaders also just be careful of what they're writing and saying? Don't make promises. Don't say there's going to be El Nino, then there's not going to be El Nino, and then it rains, we start drowning. Like what's going on? Like give us the right information. And when you do those things, also learn how to apologize and be like I say, we take back the statement. But our government doesn't do that. Our leaders don't do that. So it's very hard telling people they can't do something when you wake up as a leader who earns a lot and presents a lot of, the people in the country, and you write anything that you want. You're also giving us liberty to do whatever we want. Right. Because you can do it and we're seeing no repercussions to whatever you've done. Right. You see? Yeah. But that was a big blow. Just imagine that a commissioner coming of trade and they can't meet you. It's an embarrassment to us just because you can't watch what you're saying.
But I also wanted to add something more there. And in terms of the thinking, while some countries even take away phones from their leaders when they rise to certain levels of offices, because not that they don't trust them, but because image is important, and the content of what they produce should be in line with a foreign policy that is properly guided. I see a recklessness from our government at the highest level that needs to be countered, like Sally said, by NGOs and civil society. Because while we may have the act in place, this act does not seem to bind some people, because the act prescribes even some punishment. So nobody seems to have picked some of those things against some of these fellows. Some of the things you see people write on X, Kenyan leaders doesn't cut. So I feel that the moral compass of the country in terms among the leaders is something that needs to be checked.
And get PAs. Get someone to curate for you this information. Find someone for hire who will read your message before you post it. They will check it for you. They will tell you, okay, don't say this. You're going to affect a certain type of people. You're going to affect the mothers. You're going to affect jobless people. You're going to affect people who haven't had employment for the longest time. Just be aware. of your surroundings and the people you're speaking to. Don't just wake up and tell us how you're feeling. Even us, we have feelings, and that is why Kenyans, they will abuse you on Twitter, and that's why they even met the last president. He was like, I'm off this app.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do it. People went in on him and he left. Yeah.
So there should be some moral compass in that, and the sensitivity as well.
Yes.
Because it's one thing having the law and prescribed. It's another thing in terms of the understanding and the sensitivity that goes with it, particularly from public leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, guys, for helping us deduce this animal called digital rights. So coming to a parting shots, Mike. What will be a parting shot when it comes to the matters in our increasingly interconnected world and matters digital rights?
Quite a lot. Having grown in two generations, one that didn't have access and now within this generation, I see the big opportunity that there is. I see the chances that young people have not only to grow in terms of professional development, like we said, accessing jobs and earning money, but also of personal development. So for me, I would urge the younger generation to look at these opportunities as golden, because the world out here is bigger than the physical where they are. The digital world is opening up to a lot more, much more. Beyond entertainment, beyond the things they enjoy on it, I think it presents a great opportunity. Yeah. So for me, my parting shot is, let us exploit with the openness that should be there. Let us also seek to understand the laws that we have in place, even from this act. But let us look at the opportunity this has brought to us and look at personal development, financial inclusion. Let us push for opportunities to respect and work together in that space.
That's interesting. It's not just matters entertainment. It's more or less you can also learn since you have access to such platforms. So, and to you, Sally, what will be your parting shot?
I agree greatly with Mike that we shouldn't shy away from the digital platforms, because our generation is getting so many opportunities and job opportunities and all that from the digital platforms. So I'd say it wouldn't be wise to shy away from it. It wouldn't be wise to stay off from it. But even as we engage with and even as we explore these digital platforms, I think it is also essential for us to know our rights, know that you know how to stand up for yourself, know how to take action against anything that may unfortunately may happen. And yeah.
Really, that's interesting. And well, last but not least, and to you, Diana.
Yeah, I think most of the things I would have loved to say have been featured. So so what I will say is, I think we should be a bit sensitive when it comes to the internet. In as much as we're trying to learn and also share our sentiments, let's at least be considerate and sensitive of the things that we do say and we do display. And we should also realize that some of these things have major repercussions down the line, But yeah, as people from my generation, since people are mentioning their generations, I think we have really embraced social media. I think we have taught a lot when it comes to social media, also how it works, how it maneuvers, we have taken it up in arms to basically level ourselves up, because as much as we're suffering from unemployment, we're also seeing a lot of youths are also finding employment in the informal sector through social media. So we have a lot to learn, obviously, and I'm hoping people from Mike's generation can learn as well. But yeah, I think so far I would just prefer for us to be a bit more sensitive, more self-aware, more careful of what you ingest and also what you put out, because everyone is also at the receiving end of this thing. We're also trying to learn and navigate it. Yeah.
That's it for today, where we got to explore the legal frameworks and challenges surrounding the protection of digital rights in Kenya. Thank you once again for joining us, and also thank you to our able panelists And the conversation does not end there. You can continue conversations on our socials at The Youth Cafe.